Hi, my name is Ann McElhenney.
And I'm Phelim McAleer.
And welcome to the Ann Phelim Scoop. We've got Magda with us today, which is very nice.
Yes.
Very nice. Return to normality of
yes,
some kind.
Right, yes.
It is
Keep the warring parties apart.
Exactly. It is week 24. Week 24, that's month 6 of the 2-week flatten the curve lockdown.
What's in today's show, Anne?
What's in today's show? Well, I think we should just mention for a moment, by the way, that it is 6 months of the 2-week flatten the curve lockdown. It may not be a lockdown where you are, but there certainly is plenty of a lockdown where we are.
Bars closed, restaurants closed, indoors, gyms closed, movie theatres closed.
The Venice Pier is closed and has not been.
Santa Monica Pier is closed.
It's really sad. It's really
churches
sad.
are closed.
Yeah, and people are panicking, and they're being made panic because the media are telling lies about how bad the situation is, and it's not as bad. But anyway, you should be listening to The Daily Virus, which is an audio-only podcast that we have, and you can find it on where all you find all good podcasts, on all podcast platforms. Look for the Ann Phelim Scoop, and you'll find our daily podcast. What's happening in today's show, Phelim?
Well, forget everything you heard about the shooting in Kenosha, Wisconsin. We're going to analyse it virtually frame by frame. We're going to talk about the legal issues. Some very weird legal decisions being made here, but let's see what the evidence brings out. And Obamagate marches on is the second thing we'll be looking at. We bring you the latest on the Flynn stitch-up.
And crazy California. You won't believe the latest great idea that our Californian betters have come up with. We have 2 crazy California stories, actually. In our second crazy California stories, we have Gavin Newsom, who's having a hard time trying to explain why we here in California, and probably one of the richest places on the planet Earth, we've had rolling blackouts. So we talked to our very dear friend and the founder of Climate Depot to explain what's going on. And we have a very happy, simple end of summer recipe, which I think will bring joy. And it's very important to find joy in the little things. I'm always saying that. Phelim, tell us what happened in Wisconsin.
Well, as many of you know, there was a police shooting in Kenosha, Wisconsin. A gentleman, Mr. Jacob, was shot 7 times. Again, it's there's not clear. There are certain things we know, that he was wanted on a warrant for sexual assault. He was not supposed to be there as part of the bail conditions, and there was a knife found in the car. He was shot 7 times. That is a debatable and arguable shooting. However, in the protests that have emerged since then and riots since then, there was a second night of violence, of real shooting violence, where a young man is now facing 2 murder charges and a wounding charge after he shot protesters. You've heard a lot, and in fact, a number of left-wing organisations have tried to get Tucker Carlson and Jesse banned from their airwaves and from their Twitter accounts, etc., and their podcasts. Jesse Kelly, because they dared to suggest that Kyle Rittenhouse, the person who's been charged, may not be guilty, or that there's questions over the shootings. So I decided to look at it frame by frame, and thankfully there's lots of video, but not just frame by frame, but as an ordinary human being as well, hopefully a member of the jury. We'll get to that later at all. And if you want to know why you should be suspicious of this, when you see things like the Washington Post say, the Washington Post headline, dueling narratives.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love
dueling
that.
Narratives.
Dueling
cause
narratives.
Debate. And it's like, Washington Post, that means that the facts don't match the narrative they would like to spin.
Pushing.
Yeah. So Washington Post, you're not writing a novel.
Yeah.
Narrative is a word you use when you write fiction, a novel. You're a journalist. You're supposed to write the facts, right? That people, that is a public service.
Yes. That's what you're getting the big bucks for.
So, as I say, it was a bit like the Nick Sandman from the Covington Catholic Boys, when all the media piled in on him and called him a racist, and then the facts came out and the videos came out and showed that he was the one that was attacked. They talked about the situation being more nuanced.
More nuanced, yeah.
And it's like,
yeah.
In other words, we got it completely wrong. So dueling narrative. So there was a narrative, this was some kind of far-right militia guy who went crazy and shot the people. So let's look at the video that's available. And actually, let's look at the video that the Washington Post has helpfully collated on their website. And in it, you'll see Kyle Rittenhouse running away. and being chased by a man.
Oh, he got a gun! He got a gun!
You'll see that man fire a bag at him, a plastic bag, as they go behind some cars, and then you'll hear a single shot.
Ooh, they shoot.
And then a series of shots. As you'll notice, the single shot is different from the series of shots that follow. There's also, then we'll play a second video where we can see the male who chases him appear to grab Kyle Rittenhouse's firearm, and Rittenhouse opened fire. So let's play that video now.
Ooh, they shoot. Ooh, he shot.
So I would humbly suggest there are not dueling narratives here. You can try and twist facts, but we've seen the video now. There are a number of plain facts. Remember what those are, Washington Post? Those are the things that are supposed to bring up the core of journalism stories, not a narrative. So first, it's very obvious there, Kyle Rittenhouse was running away from someone chasing him. Wisconsin does not have a stand your ground law as far as I know. So I don't think it's as mental as California's law, where you're obliged to flee. But I don't think, some states have very liberal stand your ground laws. I don't think Wisconsin does. So, and Kyle Rittenhouse was trying to flee. There is no doubt about that.
What age is he, by the way?
He's 17, right? So the protester, fired a plastic bag at him. I saw some left-wing newspapers and outlets saying he was shot for firing a plastic bag. Look, we don't know what was in the plastic bag. It looks like something was in it. A plastic bag with a full water bottle in it can be a lethal projectile. A plastic bag with a rock can be a
plastic bag full of acid could be particularly dreadful.
Yeah.
So we don't know. I suppose we don't know that, but certainly it does appear that Kyle Rittenhouse. I mean, you can see that in the videos that he's running away.
Yeah, and that the plastic bag was flowing, and it looks like something was in it. But what is clear that when they go behind the cars, and you see this in the second video, Joseph Rosenbaum, the person who died tragically, tries to or manages to grab the barrel of Kyle Rittenhouse's gun. Now, a lot of outlets have described Rittenhouse as shooting an unarmed protester. And that's a sly way of not telling the truth, which is the duty journalists have to their audiences. Rosenbaum was not armed with a firearm, and let's accept that the plastic bag wasn't a weapon. Even though, by the way, I wouldn't like to fire a plastic bag with a rock at a cop. You might find yourself charged with attempted murder. But let's accept that the plastic bag wasn't a weapon. But once Joseph Rosenbaum reached for Kyle Rittenhouse's weapon, in my opinion, and I think legally, he became an armed person, an armed protester. In fact, he became a dangerous armed protester because you can carry a gun and not be a threat to anyone. But chasing someone, firing something at them, and grabbing or trying to grab their gun makes you a threat to them. Someone chasing you is about to disarm you and become armed themselves. It's for a jury to decide, obviously, in the end, but it's not hard to see how this is a very defensible shooting, and I mean that legally. I don't mean it morally.
Yes.
Another factor is that as he closes in on Kyle Rittenhouse, you hear the first shot, which is different from the rest of the shots. That is someone else firing. It's a pistol shot, apparently, those people who know these things. We don't know where that shot came from, and most important is Kyle Rittenhouse didn't know where it came from either. So someone is chasing him, firing a plastic bag at him, trying to grab his gun. A shot rings out. So again, it's not difficult to see what a defense lawyer will argue here. So then it'll
be very interesting to follow that case, actually, and I hope that we get to do that, Phil.
Yes, I think we will. I think we
might be those people who might be there in the courtroom every day trying to put this together, because certainly this is an interesting case. Let's put it that way. Obviously, tragic ending. Yeah. But let's see what actually happened.
So then, after that shooting, where that gentleman unfortunately died, we have footage then of Kyle Rittenhouse running away from the scene, being pursued by numerous people, some of whom were attacking him. And after one of these attacks, he falls, and the two other men descend on him, kicking and attacking him. He fires several shots. So let's have a look at that video now from 3:58 to 4:19. Let's play that video. Maybe there's some video from some angle where this is completely different, but it's quite clear what happens there. Kyle Rittenhouse is on the ground after being put to the ground by someone else, or he stumbles. Let's give them that. Two men jump on him, attacking him. He opens fire on his attackers. The first attacker escapes unwounded. The second one is hit and falls. That second one is apparently a man called Anthony Huber, who tragically dies from his wounds. Then a third person comes up and appears to come and attack him and is shot in the arm. That third victim who survived being shot is identified as Gage Grosskreutz. And it's only when the footage of this attack is slowed down, it becomes clear that Grosskreutz actually had a handgun in his hand, about to point it at Kyle Rittenhouse, and he is shot in the arm that is carrying the gun. Now, so some outlets have said that Grosskreutz was a felon who wasn't allowed to have a gun. I don't know the answer to that, so I'm not.
This is what a court of law is for. So hopefully they are going
Yes.
to pull all these pieces out and present the jury with the facts.
So again, the first one is definitely defensible legally. He's on the ground. He's been attacked by a mob, and it's only when the two people attack him, the three people attack him, that he shoots at them and shoots two of them and wounds one and kills the other. One other point to make as all of these events go on, it's about less than 5 minutes in total, but during this time there are 16 shots heard from other guns. Even the Washington Post slips this in a story. So these attacks in this short period of time, they take place in an atmosphere where shots from other weapons are ringing out. And just go back to what I was saying at the beginning. The left are trying to get people cancelled or banned for suggesting that Rittenhouse might not be guilty of murder. They're trying to have Tucker Carlson fired, Michelle Malkin and Jesse Kelly removed from their platforms. And they've written to Apple, by the way, to get them removed from the podcast platform.
Unbelievable.
Apart from being a bad idea, full stop. Anyway, for this particular situation, it flies in the face of the evidence that is clear from the video. The question that remains actually is, will a prosecutor be non-political enough to be honest about the evidence that is there? And if the prosecutor is honest enough, will they be brave enough? And if he's not brave enough, or he or she is not brave enough, will the jury be brave enough to follow the evidence? Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Let's see what happens there. What's happening also in other news, in another legal story? What's happened to the Flynn case, Phelim?
Well, the Flynn case, his appeal has been denied. Not his appeal against conviction, his appeal against a judge who seems to have gone amok. So a federal appeals court on Monday there declined actually to order the dismissal of the case. The Justice Department, who are the prosecutors, have said we're dropping the prosecution. The defence have obviously are in favour of that, but the judge is not accepting this, and this is very, very unusual. So this keeps the case alive. It's
and just
madness.
let's just remind people what are we talking about here? Tell us the background to this.
Well, Flynn, the background is Flynn was Trump's national security advisor. He had a phone call during the transition with the Russian ambassador. They talked about sanctions. He was asked about it in a ambush FBI interview that he didn't realize was an ambush FBI interview. He gave answers that the FBI officers themselves
said at the time
seemed honest,
yeah,
but mistaken. But when the Mueller investigation came in, they used this they said he's lying to the FBI in a way to try and get him to flip on Obama and reveal information. He did cooperate with the inquiry, but of course there was nothing to flip on Trump. So I think the lesson from this, is, the things you need to remember is, don't forget Obamagate, this whole spying on Trump, this whole spying on the Trump presidency, the Mueller report. It all started, a lot of it. I mean, obviously it started before the election, but it really ramped up when Trump said, I'm going to hire Flynn as my national security advisor. When Obama met Trump, the only, as a part of the transition, the only piece of personnel advice, i.e. order, that he gave Trump was, don't hire Flynn.
What was Obama's problem with Flynn?
Flynn stood up to him over Iran, and wouldn't be the cool kid in the block.
Well, Flynn is certainly suffering for that. So, watch this space, and obviously we're going to have lots of news about Obamagate.
Well, the answer is don't work for Trump or you'll go to jail is really what they're saying. And that's why it's so important to do our Obamagate project. So we're going to reveal the deep state. We're going to show the deep state in their own words. It's going to be
in a really spectacular way.
And with a spectacular cast.
With a spectacular cast.
Let's get even more spectacular
by the moment.
By the moment.
So all will be revealed very soon.
We're going to be revealing the Obamagate Project very soon. Don't forget to sign up at the obamagateproject.com. It's going to be really cool and really interesting and drive people really crazy, which is wonderful.
So in other news, we have a little bit of news from California, crazy California. So the latest brilliant idea from Californian leaders is that the people who live here in California, whether they were here all the time or just arrived yesterday, owe money, apparently, in reparations to slaves. Mm-hmm. So reparations for slavery, Phelim, is the next hot thing. And so the California lawmakers... Setting up a they're setting up a task force. We love those task forces.
A 9-member commission.
A 9-member
But this
commission.
is the thing that really caught my eye. And this is why people need to leave California, actually.
The state Senate supported creating the 9-member commission on a bipartisan 33-3 vote Saturday. So aren't we so lucky with the Conservatives that we have representing us here in California for anything? Say, nah, not so much.
No,
and by the way,
three did, but the rest of them didn't.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of Republicans you have in California, and you wonder why Orange County is turning blue. Why wouldn't you turn blue when the Republicans are just Democrat light? There's no choice.
Yeah, bipartisan. It's an awful word. I hate to hear the word bipartisan.
Democratic Senator
I think
Holly
the only
Mitchell.
thing they should only be bipartisan about things like sandwich fillings or
Even that.
Who's going?
Try that with Michelle Obama's crap lunches.
All right, Phelim. Tell us.
Latino.
Tell us more.
Latino. So Democratic Senator Holly Mitchell of Los Angeles, supported by Republicans, said that, let's be clear, chattel slavery birthed a legacy of racial harm and inequity that continues to impact the conditions of black life in California. She cited disproportionate homelessness, unemployment, involvement in the criminal justice system.
Oh, involvement. Now, there's a lovely one. Involvement in the criminal justice system.
You call that a dueling narrative?
There's a dueling narrative, yeah.
Yes.
Involvement. Yeah, that's right. So tell us a little bit about yourself there, Mary. Well, I had some involvement in the criminal justice system.
You were a lawyer?
Not so much.
You were a prosecutor?
No.
You were a judge?
No, I spent some time at the what's that phrase that they use? At the
upstate to Rikers?
No, they use that phrase. A guest of the nation or whatever. A guest
at the pleasure of Her Majesty.
At the pleasure of Her Majesty. Which is a way of saying that you were locked up in the UK. But yes, anyway, moving on, Phil. Yes. Tell us more about that.
Well, there's not much to know. We're gonna be paying for something we never did. Because that's...
And Magda made a very good point. What about immigrants who arrived yesterday, never did anything wrong to anyone ever, and suddenly they're actually on the hook for this money, apparently, because I don't know how they're going to be collecting this tax.
Well, actually, Ben Affleck, didn't it come out his parents or his ancestors owned slaves?
Well, now Ben Affleck, and him's such a lovely fella and everything.
But remember he got that professor who does that. Who are my ancestors TV program?
Oh God, no.
Yes.
And then they found out.
And but he covered it up.
Oh, I forgot.
And ran the program. What was the name of the professor? You work ahead there, and I'll come back with the name of the professor.
Phil's going to work ahead there, and I'm going to continue on by saying that we've had another crazy California story is with our Governor Newsom, our Governor, awful, awesome, desperate, dreadful Governor Newsom. And we're going to be joined in a few minutes by our very dear friend Mark Morano. But Gavin Newsom has had to kind of acknowledge the fact that he was basically, that this green idea, this idea of running the whole of California, this really massive economy, one of the richest places on the planet Earth, to run the whole place on renewable energy is really tough. So he's got a bit of egg on his face in a way, right, with these recent blackouts. But we're going to talk in just a second to Mark Morano. So let's go over to that interview right now and listen to Mark Morano. Again, Mark Morano from climatedepot.com, a great friend of ours. Let's go to that now.
So we're joined again today by our dear friend Mark Morano. Mark is a former Republican aide, but probably you know him better as the person who founded and runs the website climatedepot.com. He's the author of the very informative and very funny and highly recommended book, The Politically Incorrect Guide to Global Warming. He's the producer and presenter of the documentary Climate Hustle. But just in the terms of being fair and balanced, he's also known by the Daily Cost website as Evil Personified.
Yes, very important.
So, as I think, given that he is evil personified, we can think of no better person to have on our show.
Welcome, Mark. How are you?
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Phil. I'm happy to be here today in Washington, D.C., and we are weathering both the COVID and the climate emergency that are going to be ongoing. The permanent emergencies that are unsolvable. So we're doing fine.
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah, well, in that very vein, we've had these blackouts here in California this month where hundreds of thousands of people have been plunged into darkness. And, this is one of the wealthiest places on the planet Earth, and it's an extraordinary turn of event. But the governor has actually acknowledged that one of the reasons was an over-reliance on renewables. Let's have a quick listen to what he said.
We identify the peak hours, roughly 3 p.m., about to 9, 10 p.m. Let's say 3 to 10 are the peak hours. I can explain in a moment why those evening hours become the most precious in terms of our concerns, particularly as it relates to sun going down, the utilization of solar, the fact that while we've had some peak gust winds, wind events across the state have been relatively mild. By the way, that's a good thing from a fire suppression perspective. That's an unfortunate moment as it relates more broadly to addressing the episodic nature of the renewable portfolio, of which we are prideful in the state of California, but vulnerable to in these conditions that I have stated.
So, Mark, we've just seen Gavin Newsom explain that he's had this incredible education recently, and he's worked out that solar and wind aren't reliable. What do you have to say to that? I mean, this is incredible stuff, actually.
Yeah, well, it's amazing that it would taken him this long to realize solar and wind are not known as renewables, they're known as unreliables. And for a California governor to finally realize this, and it looks like he's now going to be keeping around the gas-fired power plants that California is supposed to be getting rid of under their climate mandates. So what's interesting here is that Newsom is going to basically have the public face of solar and wind in California being this green panacea, but at the same time, much like the Wizard of Oz, he's going to have behind the curtain the real power source of California, which will be the gas-powered fire plants running behind the scenes and ultimately running California. So I think that as they go forward, I don't know how they're going to spin this. You cannot have these green energy mandates with these pie-in-the-sky fantasies, or as Ocasio-Cortez likes to say, the Green New Deal, it's aspirational goals, and expect anything but massive price increases and energy rationing. This is one reason California energy costs twice the national average, twice the national median, because of government-created energy shortages. Why? Because California, more than any other state, is the most progressive when it comes to climate change and renewable energy mandates. So you asked if this is the future, ask the UK power chief. The UK power chief a few years back warned people in Britain that they will not be able to expect power only when they want it. It's only going to be available when the government deems it necessary. In other words, they're going to be having their version of rolling blackouts in the UK and other parts of Europe. There's no way around it absent some massive unforeseen technological breakthrough with wind and solar, or how about this? politicians actually wising up and they stopped banning energy that doesn't work and is not ready for prime time, like solar and wind. Stop banning energy that works like fossil fuels and start mandating energy that's not ready for prime time. Absent that, you are absolutely facing energy shortages, or your only other hope is that he's dishonest enough to pull off the Wizard of Oz accounting trick where you have the man behind the curtain and it's natural gas powering your state, but it looks like it's solar and wind. If he can pull off some kind of political, deception, then, I'm all for it, because then Californians would get energy. But I don't know that you guys deserve energy. You keep electing these people.
I have to agree with you, that sometimes you get the politicians you deserve and the energy policies you deserve. But maybe we could have a carve out for our house or something like that. That's but right. Actually, there will be carve outs for the elites, no doubt about it.
In fact, you have your LA mayor threatening to turning the water off for people hosting COVID parties. Yeah. Well, I wonder if the governors or anyone else, elected officials, will ever go after the Bel Air mansions of the Hollywood celebrities and the multiple homes. Are they going to cut off Leonardo DiCaprio from his energy, or James Cameron from one of his houses? Are they going to start throttling him down, or are they going to go after people in public housing, the poor and the middle class? It becomes a political issue, which, by the way, is what the left wants. Identity politics, black, white, old, young, Hispanic, whatever it is, gender issues. Now electricity can be joined on that. So how good are you with your local power grid chief? Have you bribed him? Have you taken him out to dinner? Have you lobbied him correctly? Do you have the best lobbyists? Are you fading him with all sorts of lavish stuff? That's what you're looking at. It's when government gets in charge, this has now become a political issue. Who gets power and who doesn't, and who gets water in the case of COVID restrictions.
I've got a question for you, Mark, and I don't know if you know the answer to it, and it's one that it just occurs to me that it's kind of weird, by the way, that these blackouts did not affect Sacramento, San Francisco, or Los Angeles, where we have this huge, massive voting bloc. Am I becoming a tinfoil hat wearing person, or do you think? I mean, is it a thing where when these blackouts were happening, were they turning the lights on and off in different places? Were they choosing the neighborhoods? I mean, how does this work?
They chose the Central Valley, which is the only Republican part of.
Is that correct? Yes. They chose it.
Well, I mean, sorry. The lights went off in the Central Valley. The lights went off in Northern California.
But also in Monterey.
Yeah. So.
Well, I have one suggestion. We don't have the evidence yet, but I would suggest. You need what we on our side of the climate debate. We have someone named Chris Horner, who is fantastic with Freedom of Information Act requests. What you need is a public interest group in California to start FOIAing all of these power commissioners, power grid operators, to find out who was making these decisions, what kind of emails were exchanged, phone calls, because you're absolutely right. This has become a political issue. You don't think, the governor or the power grid, they're not going to turn off politically connected people that are going to howl the loudest. They're going to turn off people that are either far from them or politically different. We saw this in Michigan with the lockdowns. The lockdown protesters showed up with Governor Whitmer, and she actually said, well, now we're going to extend the lockdown because you guys made me extend it. They go after all the things that conservatives would care about. One of the first things that would close were churches. So we've seen lockdowns are highly political. And we've also seen the favoritism. You have the PA health chief putting their mother in, taking their mother out of the nursing home. Well, so you can bet that these decisions involve it. But do we have the evidence now? Can we pinpoint it? No, we don't. It's going to be very hard to get, because this is, they call it the dark web. Well, this is the dark bureaucracy, and who knows what lurks in the dark bureaucracy. But you do know that politics lurks.
So I have a climate depot question, and again to remind everyone, a great place to go to find every piece of information you ever want about the climate crisis and the climate hysteria and global warming. All of that is Climate Depot, which is Mark's website. It's a really great resource center. Highly recommended. ClimateDepot.com. Here's a climate question for you, Mark. So, Governor Newsom is basically blaming the blackouts on this very extreme weather we're getting right now. That's his definition. He says the weather is very, very extreme. Let's just listen to him describe the weather.
Well, good afternoon. I don't need to tell all of you what we're experiencing here as a state as it relates to this oppressive heat wave and these rather extraordinary weather conditions that all of us are struggling through. Many of us suffering through. Impact not just here in the state of California, but the impact being felt all across the west coast of the United States. This weather has included thousands, quite literally thousands of dry lightning strikes that have sparked fires throughout the state of California. We've seen wind gusts in Santa Cruz Mountains north of 74 miles per hour, record temperatures that we've experienced, again, not just here in the state of California, but arguably the hottest temperatures we've seen over an extended period of time in close to 70 years on the west coast of the United States, including the headlines that are being garnered around the world with our own Death Valley that may have recorded the hottest temperature in modern recording, period, historically. Some have argued, at least in the last 90 years, but you get the point, 130-degree heat in Death Valley, California yesterday. We are all experiencing rather extraordinary conditions.
I mean, is this really extreme? Is he right?
No, he's not. In fact, if you look at the National Climate Assessment, the US EPA figures for heat waves in the United States, first of all, the 1930s reigned supreme by far over everything. Even NASA data up until 2000 showed almost a cooling trend since the 1930s on the continuous 48 states. So in terms of even the record at Death Valley they were trying to claim, it was actually hotter back in the 1930s. So there was no record there in recent times. You cannot claim that the temperature is unprecedented to cause this. You also can't claim the fires are unprecedented. In fact, the fires were 80% decline since about the early 1900s in the US. And the redwood fire is not unprecedented. The fires that are happening in California are not unprecedented. In fact, the droughts that they talk about, you go back hundreds of years, California had droughts that dwarfed anything we're even talking about today. The UN and peer-reviewed research shows global droughts on a decline. So you cannot cherry pick an area and claim that this extreme weather caused it. This was caused, and by the way, drought is not a great metric for climate change anyway, because you're dealing with land use issue, water, resources, all sorts of political man-made engineering and changing of the landscape, not necessarily directly related to the atmospheric CO2 and the climate. So I think what's happened here is Governor Newsom's looking for scapegoats. He took the easiest one he could find. Even Michael Schellenberger, the man who apologized for the climate scare, is now a quasi-climate skeptic, has said, he's going after Newsom in California, saying the California fires are not unprecedented. The fires did not destroy the ancient redwoods. It's a convenient scapegoat, but don't expect him to leave this. He's going to stick with it because it's his number one protection is to blame climate change. And he'll probably seek federal aid. And if President Biden is elected, Joe Biden's elected president, you can bet California and all these other states will be bailed out. And they'll blame climate change as they continue to hammer the average American and particularly Californians with higher and higher electricity for less and less service and less electricity.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just wanted to go back to one thing you talked there about Schellenberger, the reformed environmentalist. There's another reformer who actually hit this nail on the head. Michael Moore, in that recent movie that he made, this is what he said. He said, or the person who was fronting him, Moore produced it, he said, America cannot be powered with renewables. It's not there. The technology is not there. There's going to be blackouts, and lo and behold, there's going to be blackouts. Isn't that correct? That's what he said in the movie?
Michael Moore's movie said that. And what do you think happened? It was on YouTube for free. Josh Fox, who I believe you guys have some familiarity with, he led the campaign along with Michael Mann and others to ban the movie. And what they did is very similar to other movies. They found I guess there was a copyrighted song or something in it, and then they did a copyright thing, and that got the movie pulled. They were all cheering. And then Michael Moore's lawyers got on board. Now, luckily, Michael Moore's got a lot of resources, and he was able to get the movie back up on YouTube. But it took, I don't know, maybe 5-6 days, if I recall correctly. But that's the thanks he got for his telling the truth on that message. But absolutely, Michael Moore's film, speaking of the Wizard of Oz, showed a solar trade show where they were trying to show off all this renewable energy. And then the cameraman goes and he finds all these diesel generators operating in the background. I mean, this is how California can operate it, show the solar, the wind panels and acres of windmills and solar panels, but then have the gas plants running to back up and to save solar and winds, derriere when the time comes. Ultimately, This is what we need. And by the way, don't be surprised if Robert F. Kennedy joins our team. He's been out there railing against mandatory masks and lockdowns. The lockdowns. No, he's talking specifically just COVID. He's also talking about mandated vaccines. But Robert F. Kennedy Jr. sounds like a climate skeptic railing against the climate emergency. He's talking about the science. It's amazing. So.
Michael Moore and Robert F. Kennedy on our side. Can I switch again? I don't know. No, I just want to say two things.
Next, we'll be joined by Josh Fox and James Cameron. Who knows?
Oh, please. Oh, what a choice.
No, I think those two are never coming. But I would not be surprised. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. sounds really skeptical, like he could apply everything he's saying to climate now.
So I can quite confirm to you that Josh Fox was behind getting the YouTube video taken down, because that's exactly how he got our footage taken down. The original Frack Nation footage, where I confronted him about the flammable water. He made this claim and showed 26 seconds of him making the claim, and then demolished it, and then got him to say, "Yeah, I misled," right? And his lawyers wrote to YouTube and said, "They are using my footage without permission." Now, that is a classic fair use. That's what fair use was invented for, was to stop that kind of criticism. Mm-hmm. So Fox has a track record here in quashing dissent, quashing scientific questioning, quashing journalism because of by using fair use and copyright. So he got it out. The second thing was the Schellenberg and Moore went to these trade shows and showed solar panels being funded and powered by diesel generators. We did a similar thing. Franny Armstrong made a movie, The Age of Stupid, and had a premiere in Manhattan, and was to be the first renewable powered film premiere. And I went there the day before, and there were the solar panels, and there were the windmills, and there, literally hidden behind the curtains, were the diesel generators.
We have a little secret of the environmental movement, of the age of stupid. They claim that all their power comes from the sun. But for this tribe of environmentalists, it seems that oil and gas and diesel is essential.
So there you go. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Yes.
But it's interesting, in this same Gavin Newsom press conference, I just love this. He uses a word. He talks about the fact that in the future we're going to need insurance. So Phelim and I, because we're really smart and all of that, and we went to college and everything, not everyone maybe knows what the word insurance means.
It's etymology.
Or its etymology. It's a Greek word, insurance. It means oil and natural gas. The actual meaning of the word insurance. Let's listen to Gavin Newsom talk about insurance.
And we are not backing off on that commitment, quite the contrary. But in the process of the transition, in the process of shutting down, understandably, the desire and need to shut down polluting gas plants, and a desire to go from old to the new, in that transition, and the need to shut those down, comes the need to have more insurance, comes the need to recognize that there have been, by definition, demonstrably, in the last few days, and what we expect over the next few days, gaps in terms of that reliability.
Yeah, so Gavin Newsom says that in the future, in order to keep things going here the way they should go, we're going to need some insurance, That's how he uses it. That's how he describes oil and natural gas, that the fact that they're going to, but he hates having to admit it. He just hates having to admit the fact that you can't survive without.
Well, isn't that correct, Mark? Or is there some mysterious power source that we don't know about?
No, there isn't yet. But here's the thing. Some climate skeptics will bash solar and wind to the point where, I try not to do that. I say, I'm not against it, but let it compete in the market. And we've seen it try to compete. Obama put $80 billion into his, and by the way, Biden's proposing the same thing, this $80 billion sort of green stimulus again. We found out it was like 7 out of 8 or 7 or 8 out of 10 of the recipients were Democratic donors. But they're actually, Biden supporters from the DNC actually were quoted as saying, we need to have 10 more or dozens more failed cylinders. In other words, spend tens of billions of dollars until you find that one miracle cure. That's what they're advocating right now. But absolutely not. There is absent a massive technological unforeseen breakthrough. And I love, you'll see Al Gore's PowerPoint where he shows the solar capacity going up in technology and it's just taking off. It could take off for decades at its rate. It's doubling or tripling. But if you get a penny and you double and triple it, it's still not adding up to anything significant. But I always say the day you can go to Walmart, buy a solar panel, put it on your house and get off the grid is the day this whole climate policy debate ends. But that day is very far away, or it's at least a major technological breakthrough away. In the meantime, it's all virtue signaling politically, but it has real consequences, as particularly in California. If you define energy poverty, your state's, I think, was ranked one of the worst for energy poverty because of the high electricity rates that were officially and formally started by your former governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And that, of course, legacies continued through all your governors. But as I said, it's hard for me out here. I'm in Virginia now. And by the way, my governor is trying to join California. We're trying to join this regional greenhouse gas, but it's hard for anyone not in California to have much sympathy.
I think Mark has been extremely unfair on us in calling our governor. You know, we're only immigrants here. So we're only here. We're only here a wet weekend. We only arrived on the last boat. You know, we can't be blamed.
We didn't vote for him. You know, but I mean, I just want to put it in perspective for people. So the last time we experienced energy blackouts, we have lived in and spent serious time in places like Romania, Indonesia, all over the world, Ireland. The only place we've ever experienced deliberate blackouts because of energy shortages was Madagascar. When we were in Madagascar, it was the 4th poorest country on the planet.
There was one analysis that compared California's grid. Yeah, here it is. This is the Global Warming Policy Foundation. California is relying on an electricity network that looks and acts more like a grid you'd find in Beirut or Africa than ones in Europe or the United States. So guess what, Ann Phelim? You're back from Madagascar. You're visiting Madagascar again.
Where are the lemurs?
Yeah. We come to the last question because we need to wrap up this interview. But my last question to you is we have an election coming up, Mark, and I think, you know, on a load of issues, the two parties have very, very different approaches. Can you and I think on this energy issue, on how are we going to have reliable energy, I think the two parties could not be more different. Can you describe the choice that's facing people in November?
I mean, we are facing a choice now. Joe Biden is the cover man for the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal is going to take lockdowns from the COVID and literally extend them into the climate emergency. In other words, once government officials, whether it be public health and or the climate emergency politicians who are clamoring for that, have this kind of power to open and close an economy, they're not giving it up. So this is now real. In other words, it's not some theoretical threat. We've witnessed what they want to do. How do we know this is what they want to do? Because the United Nations officials, Greta Thunberg, John Kerry, I have a whole special report on every major climate figure from Al Gore on through, have praised the lockdown's ability and what they've been able to do and how we should treat the climate emergency the same way. That's what's at stake. If you love the COVID lockdowns, you're going to love the climate emergency lockdowns. Simplest way to explain this election. I just wish Donald Trump were stronger on this. He's still going around touting Neil Ferguson's discredited 2.2 million death model from COVID. And I hope Donald Trump turns this in. I believe this should be a referendum on a future of no lockdowns versus lockdowns. We should never allow lockdowns again, no mask mandates, and then obviously no climate emergency lockdowns. And I think that's what they're looking for. UN summits for years featured speakers praising the degrowth movement, planned recessions. What is a lockdown, but not a planned recession, but a politician-controlled recession? And that's what they're trying to do, is convert COVID to climate.
Oh my God, that's on that very depressing and sobering note, we want to thank Mark Morano for joining us again, reminding everyone that go to climatedepot.com. Honestly, wonderful place to get a repository of all that you need to know. And by the way, this is an incredibly important election on this energy front. I mean, there's so many parts to this election, but this particular subject, as you say, we've seen a rehearsal of what may well be to come. So people should be warned. They should be, and they are the left with the Green New Deal. They are just chomping at the bit to get this, and this is the Green New Deal is a reality if Joe Biden's president. Even if there's not enough votes, they'll pass it somehow. It'll do, and just like they did Obamacare. It'll be an emergency. It'll be a COVID style public health emergency. And I think they started this with the AIDS emergency. Actually, the AIDS allowed. They told us everyone was going to die from AIDS, and AIDS
was very fatal to a number of people with certain comorbidities. And it didn't affect the general population, but lots of sweeping measures were brought in as a result. Then they had the COVID public health emergency where they shut down the world, and now the climate emergency will come along, and voila.
I really think this is the greatest advancement of state power in the history of the last 100+ years. I mean, the COVID reaction, not COVID itself, but the reaction to it. I actually publicly apologized earlier this month in Las Vegas. I gave a speech, much like I used Schellenberger as a model. I apologized for saying that the climate change agenda was the greatest threat to liberty. I said the COVID threat is, and I now predict that COVID won't go away. Viral fears won't go away. They're going to climate is going to merge with it. We've already seen Jane Fonda, other activists talking about how climate change will bring about more viruses. So these two are together. And I think they're talking about climate being a public health threat, extreme weather causing people. So this is a grave threat. Beware of the white lab coats. That is the greatest threat we face, the white lab coat technocracy. And I'm happy to have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. join our side on this.
I'm not sure about that.
Okay. We may
embrace him with open arms. He called for jailing us, Phelim. He wants to throw us in jail with 3 hots and a cot. I'm willing to forgive that if he comes out against the lockdowns and mask mandates and fights, the whole COVID restrictions. So
that is an argument for another day. Okay,
Mark, thanks, Mark. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Well, that was great.
I wonder, does Mark ever get tired of being right?
It's a funny one, and actually one part of the clip, which we didn't show earlier, and I'd love to just show right now, is quite funny, where at the very end, when he's coming to the end of his piece, Gavin Newsom, you see he's banging on the table, and you can hear him banging on the table to try and emphasize his point. I think he's in a very, very awkward situation. Let's just look at that. Let's listen to him banging the table.
And we will lay out in detailed terms what we're going to do to make sure this simply doesn't happen again.
Isn't that hilarious? Okay, well,
talking of sobering up, Ben Affleck, I talked about him earlier.
Oh, tell us more.
Yeah, so Ben Affleck, yes, he had a slave-owning ancestor.
Lovely.
And it came out in the program hosted by Professor Henry Louis Gates Jr.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that great, great.
Yeah.
And of course, Louis Gates, he's a professor.
Well, he's highly regarded.
Yes, highly regarded, and he found this ancestor of Affleck's was a slave owner, and Affleck is in the program called Find Your Roots on PBS.
Oh yeah,
and
it's a great show, by the way.
And he covered it up, and it didn't broadcast.
So who covered up?
Louis Gates. Affleck said, "I don't want the world to know my ancestor owned."
Oh, and Gates agreed to it.
Gates agreed to it. And by the way, that is.
That's all you need to know.
Unethical on 100 different levels.
1,000 levels.
And your man is still presenting that program.
Huh. And that's PBS for you.
Yes, that's PBS.
And by the way, PBS, am I correct in saying, paid for by taxpayer dollars?
That's correct.
Another use for your taxpayer dollars. Look at that.
Does that mean, though, Ben Affleck is going to have to pay extra for these reparations?
Oh, I'll tell you one thing. If I'm living here in California, I'll be making sure that he does.
Yeah.
You and I, Phelim, will make sure that Ben Affleck pays more. And I was very fond of Ben Affleck, but then he wasn't nice to Jennifer Garner. It's another reason for me not to like him. We're moving on because
there's two sides to every story, but one side of that story is alcoholism.
There's that old thing about alcoholism. And by the way, we did enjoy Ben Affleck's recent film where he kind of
Payback.
His kind of...
No, that's what it's called. Isn't it called Payback? Way Back?
The Way Back, which is like his movie about his alcoholism. It's actually pretty good, but I don't think that the message that comes out of it, which is basically if you train a team playing basketball, you basically cure yourself of alcoholism. I'm not sure that works, but sure, anything that you might go work.
That was the last movie we watched before the lockdown.
It's the last movie we watched before the lockdown. We had a young friend visiting us, and we then have now decided that that's going to be the phrase that the young man is going to hear for the rest of his life. Every time we meet him, we're going to say to him, if you ever become an alcoholic now, John, you need to remember you can cure it by taking care of a basketball team. Coaching a basketball team. The last thing I want to do today is something really joyful and gorgeous, and you're going to start looking at these wonderful photographs. I just think tomatoes are beautiful to look at. Look at these beautiful, beautiful tomatoes. And this is a kind of a simple enough, like its recipe maybe is a little bit, but now this does exist in recipe books, but it's a non-cooking situation. This is a burrata. This is a caprese salad. Don't get ahead of yourself, Anne. This is a caprese salad. Classic caprese salad, which I think is just joy on a plate. Perfect, clean, delicious, luxurious food. The classic version of this is you get really good tomatoes. And I'm not a snob about tomatoes, but I do get the odd heirloom tomato, but don't go breaking the bank for them. Get whatever tomato you enjoy. Slice it thin enough. You'll see me slicing the tomatoes there. And then, as I said, classically, this salad is made with mozzarella. And mozzarella is very easy to slice. You can see there how easy it comes. And then quite often, actually, you can buy it ready sliced. Even more simple way of doing it. I, however, like my caprese salad made with burrata. And, you know, the difference between mozzarella and burrata, both of them are semi-soft Italian cheeses. They're both very creamy and ridiculously delicious. And they're both made from cow or water buffalo milk. This is the crack cocaine here. This is the stuff that you totally want, the burrata. And it is expensive. It's very expensive when you buy it in like a regular store, but it's not expensive if you get it in Costco. But you might find somewhere where you can get it cheaply, and it's just ridiculous how great it is. The difference between mozzarella and burrata, do you see the way I'm doing I'm doing a little bit of a Michelle Obama on it.
Oh, Latino. Let's hear Michelle say that.
Latino.
Actually, nobody can say it as well as Michelle.
Latino.
Let's
So
hear
basically-
Michelle. I want to hear Michelle again one more time.
Latino.
Stop. Okay, so basically the difference between, I explained the difference between mozzarella and burrata. So both, as I said, they're both semi-soft Italian cheeses and basically made from the water buffalo. But the burrata takes the mozzarella just one step further, and they form it into a pouch and they fill it with soft, stringy curd and cream, and it's outrageously nice. And of course, you know what I'm going to say next. You can buy it super cheaply, by the way, in Costco. Like really super cheaply, because I did buy it in an emergency one time in Ralph's, and I'm still sort of reeling from how much money I paid for it. So if you can, try and get it somewhere cheaper, but it's beautiful. And then you just slice those tomatoes. And as I said, in the case of the burrata, you cannot slice the burrata. That's one of the problems with it. So I would plop it. You'll see the way I've done that on the plate. I've plopped it in the middle. And then encircle that with your tomatoes. And if you're using a variety of colours, that adds to it too. Next off, like this is so simple and so perfect, and you're going to make people really happy. And if you do this for someone for lunch, they're going to think that you're like the best friend they've ever had. And then you plop that down. I would then just quick pepper and salt, lovely kosher salt there, and pepper. Don't forget, obviously, basil. Fresh basil is the secret to this recipe. And you'll see me now cutting the fresh basil out the front. I've been partially successfully growing basil. And you know, if you can find the right spot in the house, and or outside your house if the weather's that way inclined, you know, sunny but not too sunny, and you'll move it around, put it in a pot and move it around and get it to the right spot, and it's just magnificent. And then a really good extra virgin olive oil, sprinkle that, and then again in a remove from the classic caprese, I always use a really well-aged balsamic vinegar. So it's like 15 or 20-year-old balsamic. And I got this particular balsamic that you're looking at there. I got that on a sale. So I was all excited myself. I got it on a sale because I wouldn't pay, some of these things can be very expensive. Arrange that on a plate and look at how pretty that is. Look at how extremely pretty that is. And bring that out. We're going to put it like this here. And then people can eat that with, a little bit of bread. And for today's lunch, we're having, a bit of frittata. We're having some salmon. Serve that to your friends. You see, I'm going to serve that now with I think a crunchy bread, just to contrast, the textures. And when it comes to crunchy bread, you know what our friendly crunchy bread right now is. Because my favorite meme that I created myself for this pandemic was, I didn't learn to make sourdough bread during the pandemic, but I certainly learned to eat it, which all of my clothes are recognizing that issue right now.
We should put that on a mug.
We should do that. I didn't learn to. There you go. We're looking for merch ideas. So there we go. This could be our merch ideas. So anyway, lovely crusty bread, and then serve that with a glass of white wine, something like an Albarino from Argentina, or in the case that I have now, I'm just serving it with a Cabernet Sauvignon, which is really, again, really, really cheap from Costco. I think that bottle that I have there is like $7.50 or $8. So really, really delicious. And you serve that to people for a lunch. You really can't go wrong. And I served it with, we had a green salad, I think, as well, but it's really, really gorgeous. And I think, again, people need to find the joy in the little things. And Phelim and I have definitely learned to eat sourdough bread during the pandemic. We've also learned to eat ice cream during the pandemic. And I'd say it's not a great idea to eat ice cream every day. So we're trying to wean ourselves off that now. Not easy though.
Amazing.
That's us for this week. Thank you so much for everything. Please don't forget to leave a comment.
Yes.
Please leave comments on the podcast in all the places that you can. Give us a 5-star rating. We would love that. And for those of you who have donated, thank you so much for donating. And please
and
keep on.
Keep your eye out.
Keep on keeping on.
Keep your eye out for announcements on the Obamagate Project coming soon.
Thanks a lot. Bye now.